Hello everyone, and welcome to our Capitol Watch program for Friday, January 18th, our weekly look at legislative news from Jefferson City. And joining us from our governmental relations offices in Jefferson City is MSBA's Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed. And Mike, this was a week, at least the beginning of the week, a lot of pomp and circumstance in Jeff City, wasn't it?
Oh yes, it was a lot of fun. Started out the inauguration, the parade, the receptions, and the inaugural ball. It was a big kickoff for a session that I think is going to be extremely interesting, and it was kicked off in a very fine way on Monday.
And of course, the governor gave his inaugural address on Monday, and let's take a look at a little bit of what he had to say about education in that address.
We do not inherit the future. We must build the future. A future without limits, where all our children get an education that prepares them to compete for the best jobs in the global economy. Where the brightest minds in science and technology advance the frontiers of human knowledge. Where business and the arts flourish. Where the bounty of Missouri's farms and fields will feed, clothe, and power the planet. And where the natural beauty of our state is preserved and cherished for all time. I am more optimistic than ever about our future. We will put our shared principles ahead of our small differences and work together for the common good. The people of Missouri deserve and expect no less.
And Mike, of course, the governor staying pretty general in an inaugural address, but he has outlined several specific legislative goals during a trip down to the Nixa School District last week, and talked about several important initiatives.
Yes, he did. He outlined several goals. One is increasing the length of the school year to 180 days. That's a very interesting situation, and I think it deserves a lot of discussion and a lot of work to see where we go with that situation. Also, increasing funding for early childhood education. We have always known that if we can spend money on the front end in early childhood education, it's money well spent and returned several-fold. So that's a group of kids that we need to keep working with in early childhood education. And here at MSBA, that's been one of our priorities for a number of years. He's also looking at increasing funding for A-plus scholarships, another excellent avenue for kids to go to school, to finish up part of their education in the first 2 years at the vocational school or at junior colleges before they transfer. Some very good goals. We will see how those are funded in the State of the State speech, which is set for a week from Monday on the 28th of January.
So Mike, he really gets into more specifics in the State of the State, and also he'll release his budget plan at that time. Is that right?
Yes, he will. We'll find out where we are on the school aid foundation formula, as well as where he is with all of these other things. And we're hopeful. It appears that the state revenues are up a little this year. Perhaps not as much as we would like, but we're on an upward trend, and so we hope that we can receive more money for education this year.
Turning to the legislature, Mike, things just getting underway really in the session. Not a lot of activity this past week, but we did see some bills filed regarding an issue that we care a lot about, and we hope the legislature addresses quickly, and that has to do with reinstating some provisions of the Sunshine Law.
Yes, there have been several bills introduced. Senator Kehoe introduced a bill in the Senate late this week, helping us to close this loophole. This is a very important piece of legislation. The legislation has on it an emergency clause, so as soon as it passes the General Assembly, that comes into effect immediately. There have also been several bills passed or introduced in the House. We're hoping that these bills get a hearing very shortly, and we will let our members know, because it's extremely important that this piece of legislation gets on a fast track and gets moving.
Mm-hmm. And then this has to do, Mike, with protecting school safety plans. Is that right?
Yes, I got ahead of myself. At presently, school safety plans perhaps are open to request under the Sunshine Law, and we believe that this is something that is not necessary. It has been closed for the last at least 10 years, and there's a sunset with it, and so the sunset expired, and we need to reinstate that.
The committees, both in the House and the Senate, that deal with education, Mike, did have some meetings this week. Tell us about those.
Yes, the House committee met in an organizational meeting on Wednesday morning, just getting things organized and figuring out what is going to happen. The Senate committee met on Wednesday afternoon and heard presentations from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as well as the Conservation Department, and a presentation on funding for higher education under a formula, foundation formula, much like our foundation formula. It's my understanding that the Senate will be holding hearings on bills this next week. So we're up and going and moving at a quick pace.
All right, Mike, and we have some activities coming up as well in Jefferson City. We have our S-band visits for our board members coming up, as well as our legislative forum in February. Tell us about those.
That's right. S-band visits will start in about a week. They're on Tuesdays, and people come from the regions, the various regions, down to Jefferson City to meet with us here at the Governmental Relations Office. Then we go to the Capitol and have discussions with their elected officials. It's extremely important that our members do this because people in the legislature see lobbyists all the time, but people from home are much more important. And our members are, in fact, our elected members, as we know, and they have the same constituency as the elected state representatives. So it's extremely important to let one elected member talk to another elected member on how the actions in Jefferson City affect the local people, the local students, and how you operate your local school district. We also are having legislative forum, at which time it's in February. We will be having several people discuss items that are out there, including PSRS and where are we with the state retirement system, where are we on working on bonded indebtedness and trying to increase the limits on bonded indebtedness, and several other issues. It's a very, very good time to come to Jefferson City.
All right, Mike, and we encourage our members to go ahead and register for the Legislative Forum. Registration information is available on the MSBA website. We also have a link to the registration on our Legislative Voice electronic newsletter that you receive every Friday from MSBA. Mike Reed, thanks a lot for being with us. Things are beginning to pick up in Jefferson City, and of course, we'll be keeping you up to date through this program, the Legislative Voice newsletter, and the daily blog on our website. Thanks for joining us. We hope you join us again next week for another edition of MSBA's Capitol Watch.